Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. I'm Sean, and I'm happy to be talking at you today. This episode is made possible in part by Horizon Therapeutics. Kyle, happy Valentine's Day. What's going on, man?
Well, I don't know if anyone else noticed, but you sound like garbage. What's up with that?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I feel like garbage as well.
Man.
I don't know what's going on. A bit of a head cold. We're getting through it. Thankfully, I'm secluded to my own bedroom, and there's no chance of getting you sick through the computer.
That's good. All right, well, thanks for sticking it out.
Of course.
Also, Sean, I don't know if I ever told you this, but my wheelchair was damaged last April.
Oh, no, you told me. We told everybody. There was wheelchair saga all 2022.
Yeah, exactly. And so it is finally wrapped up. Last week, they came and put the final little piece on to fix the last little issue with my chair. So, I mean, almost a year, I guess we call it that now. It took to get it fixed, but
That's
it's
crazy.
all done.
Well, I'm glad to hear it's finally wrapped up and can be filed away as a closed case.
Yeah.
You know, I gotta just give it attention. I feel bad for you, but you managed, right? A year or 10 months or whatever it is. This kind of drama, it's not that easy for many others. So part of the reason why I appreciate you telling the story and we bring it up is because we as society, we have a lot of work to do to make it better for people, especially using motorized, custom, very expensive, not easy to get wheelchairs. So
Totally.
I'm glad it worked out for you.
Yeah, and you're right. We just need to keep talking about it, right? Keep it front of mind so that, these issues start coming to the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, we're thankful for Horizon Therapeutics' support of this show and the rare disease community as a whole. And with Rare Disease Day coming up, we think you want to hear this. February is one of my favorite months because of the mild temperatures and beautiful sunsets here in Northern California. Kyle, West Coast to best coast, baby.
Dude, I don't know what you're talking about because I love it when it gets below zero here and dumps a few feet of snow on the East Coast. It makes my Dunkin' Donuts taste that much better.
Well, no matter where you live, February is the best because it marks Rare Disease Day. And this year is taking place on February 28th.
Our friends at Horizon Therapeutics, a global biotechnology company, are committed supporters of the rare disease community as well as Rare Disease Day.
Since 2017, when they launched their #RareIs program, Horizon has helped elevate the voices, faces, and experiences of people living with rare diseases. They also have a number of signature programs like their RareIs Global Advocate Grant Program.
Yeah, the RareIs Global Advocate Grant supports the rare disease community by providing financial assistance to global patient advocacy groups working to address, educate, and advance the needs of the community. Last year, they awarded 30 global patient advocacy groups a one-time $5,000 grant.
Wow. Financial support to 30 patient advocacy groups is a big deal.
Right? But check this out. In honor of Rare Disease Day 2023, They're awarding 50 grants totaling $250,000.
Wow, that's awesome. And typically, you've got to apply to receive a grant. So, to learn more or to apply, visit www.rareiscommunity.com/grant.
Good luck, everyone, and happy Rare Disease Day. As many of you know, we've introduced this mental health segment for this season, and we know there is no one-size-fits-all answer or course of action, but we simply want to bring common issues into the spotlight. We believe just by talking about things reduces their negative power over our lives, and we're hopeful you find encouragement in these brief conversations. Today we have invited Andra Stratton. Listeners, you might remember Andra from episode 98. That was a long time ago, episode 98, and we're glad to have Andra back to talk to us about coping with bad days. Andra, where do you think that starts for you?
Okay, let me just say 98 was a long time ago, and I feels like one really bad day since then. Until I got the call to invite me back.
Wow. Well, we're glad you came back. Thanks for hanging out with us for a few minutes today.
That's what we like to hear.
I'm fortunate to say that that's actually not at all true. I've had a lot of really good days. So I have a lot to say about this. Since my rare disease diagnosis, and I've had a lot of bad days, both mentally and physically. And it took me some time, but I've really come to conclude that really the goal for me is more good days than bad. So that means I have bad days. And in those bad days, I think about your podcast all the time. And I think about, Sean, you in particular, I think about some of the strategies that you give yourself for motivation and to get things done. And I would like to be that disciplined, but I'm going to be honest, on my bad days, I'm like, cool, it's a bad day. Screw the strategies. It's a bad day and it's okay. I am going to sit in this bad day because either tomorrow or the next day, it's going to be better. So I'm happy to talk about kind of what I do on those bad days to make them a little less bad, but I'm kind of the thought that the highs and lows are just what happens.
It's part of life. We're all going to have bad days. Warren Buffett has bad days, Bill Gates, Tom Cruise, everybody. Your bad day is different than my bad day and so on, right? So I do want to hear what Andra does, recognizing that it might not work for me. It might not work for Kyle, and maybe it only works for a few of our listeners, but the whole idea is to share some tips and tricks and different ways we wrestle with ongoing internal, you call it mental health issues, if you will. So, Andra, tell us what you do.
Number one go-to for bad days is Scandinavian crime. I watch The Darkest. In fairness, I've never been there, but in my shows, the sun is never out and everyone does drugs all of the time. And someone is definitely getting murdered by someone else that they know.
Wow. That's called leaning into a bad day.
I lean in. I watch the darkest shows and they just put me in a better mood. Is that not weird? I think the thing is that it's like proof that things could definitely be worse. Okay. So that's my number one. That's my number one go-to is really dark shows. Number two.
Wait. So sorry. Before you move on, number two, I gotta ask real quick. When you finally get to the point where you just accept, okay, I'm just gonna veg a little bit and watch some of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
Do you ever regret that later?
Never.
Awesome. I think that's huge. Yeah.
So sometimes when I lean in and I eat something I shouldn't eat,
Yeah.
then I regret, right? Like, so I have bad days for different reasons. If one of my bad days is because I'm pissed off about my disease or like frustrated with my restrictive diet, and I just say like, okay, well, I'm going to eat a whole pizza. Slight exaggeration, but then I might regret that. But I will never regret my murder shows. No, those are great. My number 2 is the other thing that I do that a lot of people don't do, but it helps me, is I talk about my bad day. If I'm in a bad mood, if I'm having a bad day, I need to tell anyone I come in contact with. And I probably need to use some curse words. I don't like hiding it. Like, if I am in a bad mood or if I'm having a really bad day and I pretend that I'm not, it makes me feel worse.
Recognizing any difficult situation can be the first step. Naming it and being like, here it is. It's on the table now.
Yeah. It honestly does make me feel better instead of worse, as minimal as I have a headache. But if somebody asks me, how are you? They're probably expecting me to say, oh, I'm fine, thanks. How are you? That's not what they're going to get.
And now, is that true for strangers and acquaintances alike? Like, if you're in line at Starbucks and somebody's like, hey, how are you? How much do you choose to divulge?
That's such a good question. Well, I'm kind of a hermit, so don't leave that much. If I'm having a bad day, I'm really probably not leaving. Leaving would be a very good strategy. Like, that would be your strategy, maybe, Sean. Like, maybe a good strategy for someone would be like, I'm having a bad day. I'm going to have a change of scenery and go get Starbucks.
Go for a walk, or
That sounds really great, but it's not likely to be what I do. If, however, I'm at the grocery store getting food that I'm not supposed to eat on my bad day, half and half. I'm pretty honest. Like, not great. I think the best I can do for my bad day, faking it, is hanging in there. Because that's true.
Yeah.
I'm still hanging in there on a bad day.
All right, what's your number 3? Do you have a 3?
Of course I have a number.
All right.
I do actually do a lot of breathing work. And like, especially if my bad day has to do with physical like issues with my rare disease. If I'm having a bad pain day, or I'll lay there, I really do try and pretend that I'm on the beach. That's always my go-to like meditation. On the beach, in the sunshine. I don't actually feel that works as well as my murder shows, but I still try it. Honestly, the worse day I'm having, the more likely I am to then fall back on like go-to strategies of, okay, this is ridiculous. So maybe it's my second bad day. I've already watched my murder shows. I feel I'm just not shaking it. Then I go to like doing what you're supposed to do, which is like movement. I'll do yoga. I'll get out. I'll go for a walk. I'll play with my dog. So I do the things that typically work for people. I just don't do those first.
Those aren't the first choice.
No. Lean into the bad day. And when all else fails, do the other things.
Our listeners know we're not experts, right? None of us are therapists. We're not doctors. We're not experts in anything, but we're scratching the surface. And I love how you talk about the importance of leaning into the bad day and being authentic with yourself and with those around you. Maybe you don't have to tell them everything as to why it's a bad day, but at least you're not hiding it. Like you said, you're not going to fake it. So I can appreciate that. I find a lot of value in that, and I'm glad you came on to share those little things. And hopefully our listeners feel encouraged to know that Andra has bad days too. It's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to watch some murder shows.
I agree. Thank you, Andra, for helping us with this segment. Listeners, remember, you got this.
Kyle and I were privileged to connect with Jacqueline and Alexa Child not too long ago. They are sisters and badass entrepreneurs who are changing the game of online dating for folks with disabilities. And what a perfect topic in recognition of Valentine's Day. Please enjoy our conversation with the founders of the Dateability App. Jacqueline and Alexa are the co-founders of Dateability, an app specifically designed for folks with disabilities. They are sisters, and they're on the line with us right now. Jacqueline and Alexa, welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Absolutely. Okay, you've got to tell us a little bit about your personal story, and then, of course, we'll dive into all things app and tech and whatever else goes with that. Introduce yourselves to our listeners.
So, I'm Jacqueline, and I became disabled due to chronic illnesses when I was 14. I really spent my 0 to 14 not understanding disability or not really being aware of disabilities or chronic illness, aside from my father had onset rheumatoid arthritis pretty severely. But other than that, we lived a very normal life. And after becoming disabled, I still was very isolated in our small mountain community in Colorado, with really not anyone else openly having a disability or chronic illness. And so while I was a little isolated in that sense, I never really had experienced ableism in a big sort of way. There were comments here and there, but nothing that really affected my life. And then once I graduated college, I moved to Denver with my sister Alexa, and I just really experienced the ableist tendencies from society at that point, and really in the dating world. I had a lot of issues dating. Anytime I brought up my disabilities, I was ghosted or told that I was, a burden. Would cause too much stress to date me, and so it would just end there. And in 2021, my doctors and I decided that I had to get a J-tube placed due to gastroparesis. And Alexa panicked for me and just was like, if able-bodied people don't understand your disabilities before having a feeding tube, how are they going to understand that you don't eat 3 meals a day and that you have severe vomiting? And she just panicked. And before that, I had Googled a lot of chronic illness dating apps or disabled dating apps, and there was never something legitimate. There was never something I felt comfortable being on. And so pretty much that day that we had this panic, we decided to just make one our own. And that's where we are. And a year later, in October 2022, we launched Dateability.
Wow, that's neat.
So as of right now, it's Valentine's Day. And we're curious, so what is that, about 4 months or so, maybe 5. How's it going so far?
It's going really well. We have over 2,000 users so far, which we're really proud of. We've really been targeting people with all types of disabilities, chronic illnesses, physical disabilities, intellectual disabilities, psychiatric disabilities. So we're really happy to have a diverse user base. And it's just been really great to hear the feedback that we've received. People are always looking for love.
Yeah, people are signing up every week. 2,000 users in less than 3 months is based on word of mouth. And we haven't, we don't have ads. We haven't been paying for marketing is great. And then we're hoping, and planning on 2023, having just the word of Dateability spread and having a ton of users join.
Well, hopefully having you on the show today will help a tiny bit. A lot of our listeners can relate to not only the line of everybody's looking for love, but also some of your experiences, being ghosted and people saying you're a burden and I don't understand, so see you later. All these different things, unfortunately, are reality for many, many of us. We're all, many of us and our listeners are in that space.
Yeah, and I think that I've received this feedback, but I don't know if other people have, is that I get the two opinions, is that why haven't you found someone? You should have found someone already. Or the other side of, it's going to take someone really special to love you and to deal with all this. And neither of those are helpful when trying to find someone to date.
Yeah. So I guess maybe the $1 million question, Jacqueline, have you found anybody yet?
I get asked this a lot, and because I made it with myself in mind, but running this company has proven more time consuming than I ever thought. So I've really been just consumed with making this app the best thing. But I do have faith that when things are put in cruise control and I can just relax a little, that I will find somebody on it.
Awesome. Yeah. I don't doubt that whatsoever. I can understand priorities. They change probably constantly, especially when you've started a new venture like this one. So congratulations to both of you for the launch and a couple thousand users already. Very cool. I want to jump into a little bit of what you alluded to, and that's the whole ableism mess, right? We all experience it in different ways, different degrees, whether it be a off the cuff comment that people don't really realize is unfair or not mindful of anybody else, or it's literally somebody being pretty blatant about how maybe you are less than, or how they think you or I are less than. So can you tell us a little bit about, maybe from your personal experience, can you talk about maybe when you realized the gravity of ableism and how you began to navigate that scene long before having the exciting venture of your app on the side?
Yeah, the first time I really experienced outright ableism was when I was working at my dad's little coffee shop, and someone had seen me park in the disabled parking spot and walk 100 feet to the coffee shop where I was sitting on a stool. And, I finally, at the end of the day, get back into my car, and a cop pulls up and he says, "Hey, we received a call saying that you were violating parking." And I'm terrible with confrontation. I immediately was shaking and crying, and I was just like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm disabled, and that's really mean of them. And I drove off and came home crying to my parents, and that cop got a very stern phone call from my father yelling at him. But that was really the first time that I experienced this. But as far as dating, it comes, like you said, in every sort of direction. It's like the little comments of just inappropriate questions. One time I had hip surgery and I came on crutches, and it was those cool crutches that don't hurt as much. And the guy's like, "Those aren't real crutches." And I was like, what's the point of that?
On a date?
Yeah. I thought you said you were on.
Wow.
And I was like, these are crutches. And then it goes to exchanging a few messages on a mainstream dating app and telling me that I shouldn't have any children because I might have a genetic component coming along with my disability. So it's really a wide spectrum. And after every one of those times, I just go off the apps for a couple months because why why should I waste my time just like putting myself out there and then getting.
Yeah. I think in all those situations that you mentioned, with the cop or with the comments here and there, you start to feel like, oh, maybe this person is right, especially with the cop, right? Like that is a position of authority. So maybe I'm not disabled because he said it, and it's so I think a lot of these, and even with the, like, oh, wait, maybe these aren't crutches. So I think it's hard, especially given your personality. I'm the same way. I'm a little bit of a pushover in those situations, and I start to think that I'm the one in the wrong. And I think that is a big challenge, I think, with the ableism thing is like, oh, maybe I am a jerk or less than because this person is saying it.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, I'm the complete opposite. I rarely think I'm wrong. Everyone else is right.
Same.
So I feel like in the past few years, especially after spending so much time together during the pandemic, I've watched a little bit of me rub off on Jacqueline, where now like you'll like your convictions are your convictions and you don't waver as much. But yeah, I'm an able-bodied person for now. And I was in college when Jacqueline got sick. And so I wasn't really exposed to any of it. And then I went on to law school. So I was 3,000 miles away, pretty detached in my own world at that point. And so I never really experienced ableism through a disabled person's eyes until I lived with Jacqueline. I'm now super hyper aware of it. Definitely more so than most of my able-bodied counterparts. I see it, I notice it all the time. Little things. There's like micro ableism and macro ableism. It's more, some are more obvious. But it's an interesting journey. And I don't think they just don't ever give themselves an opportunity to like walk in other people's shoes or think before they speak.
Let's fast forward a little bit and say you meet somebody and you guys fall in love and you live happily ever after, which you will, right? It's just a matter of time. What motivates you at that point?
It's a good question. I think just living my life to like the fullest potential, as cliche as that sounds, but I spent a lot of years, like specifically during that darker time after college to like 25, really feeling like my life revolved around my health and my chronic illnesses and whatever surgery I had to get then. And while like I couldn't help that my life was being consumed by that, I put all of my mental energy on that as well. And it was just really depressing. And I just felt lost and like I didn't have an identity outside of my disability. And I don't ever really want to feel that way again. And so putting that power out there and making sure I do things that make me happy and that I can do, and not just focusing on what I can't do and what my potential could have been, but just figuring out what makes me happy now.
Yeah.
And think about that, like all of your mental energy was focused on your disability and woe is me. And if it was focused on something else, maybe that would have been a productive thing for you and for all of us, for society. And then think about 26% of the people in this country are having the same or similar issues, and they're being distracted by their disability when they could be being a productive person for all of us. Think about the impact of that.
Yeah, thank you. It's part of it is the constraints that society puts on people with disabilities and chronic illnesses. There's not a lot of support, large scale and small scale. And I think that just the feeling of isolation can lead to that, all those feelings of me and feeling really sorry for yourself. And of course, like I still have those days, but it's easier to pop out of it. So I think just like the companionship and feeling like you have a community to be a part of is a really important part of being disabled.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time, right? Community is everything. Your support system, your friends, family, chosen family. We'd all have really bad days if we didn't have other people around us, for sure.
That's what we're hoping to build with Dateability is community.
So we're talking about ableism and just kind of the society, how society views people with disabilities. How does that relate specifically to the dating world and being on dating apps? Maybe let's dig into that a little bit.
So something that I always struggled with is like not only disclosing my disability. I mean, I always found like I was always able to like slide it in somehow. You know, we're from Colorado, so everyone loves to be so active and adventurous, and it's all about what mountain you climbed last weekend and where you're skiing next weekend. And so when someone asks me your hobbies, and not many of them come up as like an active, exertion sport, I tend to slide in like my disabilities there. But then I never know how to disclose it. Like, how do I just tell them my illnesses right there? Like, I don't want them to go Google it. So that's always a point that's really hard on the other dating apps. But I think on Dateability, we've really found a solution.
Yeah, so we came up with what's known as Dateability Deets, and it's a section on every user's profile. It's a basic list of descriptors, so immunocompromised, food allergy, wheelchair user, personal care assistant,
permanent medical device.
And that it's not required, but you can select that, and it shows up on your profile where your education level, your job, or your vaccination status, your political views, your hometown, whatever, all that basic info is on your profile, as well as your Dateability Deets. And it's a way to break the ice, get rid of that anxiety. It's out there. It's a neutral fact about you. It's not to be stigmatized. It's not to be hidden or be ashamed of. It's just there, just like what city you live in. And so we thought that was a great way to distinguish Dateability from the other apps, because look wise, from a user experience, it is very similar to all the other mainstream dating apps, except for its mission, but then also in its implementation and that Dateability Deets. So that was important to us.
It's really apparent that we've been able to reach far and wide. We see people with intellectual disabilities or mental illness, and we also see people with chronic illness who just might be looking for someone else who has a chronic illness. Like, it's really just, we've seen so many different types of people. Yeah. So I think that's been like the most exciting part is seeing all these profiles that we're all regular people.
Yeah. It's only a matter of time before people start to meet and fall in love, and we have those success stories. We're pretty confident about that.
Can you talk a little bit about the playing field you're in now? You said a couple of years ago you couldn't really find anything that you trusted or, looked legitimate. A quick search suggests there's a lot of options out there today. Not hating on any other app or whatever options are out there, but can you talk a little bit about what that competition looks like today?
So before we decided to start Dateability, we downloaded all of those options, and we ran into two issues. Either it was very buggy and it would, just randomly shut down consistently, because that happens with every app. Even
sure,
it sometimes it just quits on me, but it would quit frequently. The other issue we ran into is that it was more of like a devotee site, slightly more predatory. The people were, the nicest word I can think of is intimidating, and not in a good way. And so it's our understanding that these apps were maybe built to fill a void, but they weren't made by somebody with a disability. And so they didn't have the passion, they didn't care as much, and they didn't have the understanding that we have. And so we think that is the defining difference between it. I mean, and behind every great venture is a personal story. And I believe that. And so there are, when you Google dating apps for disabled people, there are options that come up, but they're just not viable. There is one called Hickey, and that is supposed to be great, but it's solely for the autistic community. And we really wanted to be diverse. We don't believe that other people, like disabled people, have to date people with the same disability. And we just want to open up the playing field for everybody. And so that's where Dateability is different.
Yeah. And another great part about Dateability is accessibility. And we tackled that issue two ways. And one was by creating both a smartphone application and a web application, so people can access it from their computer or their desktop, which was really a crucial part in creating Dateability. And then second, Dateability is free. So we don't expect anyone to sign up and pay for something not knowing who's on the other end. I personally have never paid for a dating app, and was very reluctant to ever, knowing my past experiences. So it's really important to us that we always have a free version so that it's accessible to everyone in our community.
Are there totally able-bodied people on the app too? And what's the breakdown, you think?
I have seen a few able-bodied people on the app, and I think it's, the large majority of people don't have a disability, but I think that there are
Have a disability?
They do have a disability. But I think the people who are able-bodied are people like my sister who have been exposed to disability and they are normalized in their household. And people who just are looking for something different. And that was something that we considered when creating the app is, do we let non-disabled people on the app? And ultimately we decided that it's easier to let everyone on. And if we're promoting an inclusive platform, it has to include everyone.
If I have a problem with somebody on the app, I email the helpline or whatever, does it go to you?
It does. Yeah. We are we're everything.
We're marketing, PR, customer service, tech support.
We get all the emails.
Yep.
Good and bad.
I imagine you look forward to the day you have a layer of people that can help maybe sift through some of those things.
Yes, that'll be great. And hopefully not too far away.
Yeah. Exciting. Now, there is another question I'm dying to pick your brain on, and I think it's everybody has a different opinion. We've talked about it on this show with multiple different couples and people in the disability world who also want to talk about dating or love and relationship. I assume with Dateability, people go on knowing that there's some disability, and you can probably read about it in the profile. Again, I haven't seen the app or the site, so I'm only assuming here. Let's say you go back to a traditional platform, or you go on a blind date because a friend set you up, or whatever it may be. When do you think it's important to disclose disability?
So this is something that I have spent hours talking about with my therapist.
Okay.
Because I struggled with it. And I'm sure this is the same for most people, is that if I don't tell someone, I feel like I'm lying. And if I do tell someone, I was like, who's to say they deserve that information?
Right.
And the answer that I keep coming back to is when it's relevant. If someone is talking to me about, and they bring up my favorite, my dog and what I do on the weekends and that sort of stuff, there's probably nothing about my disability that's going to come into that conversation. But if someone suggests, hey, like, would you want to go on a hike this weekend? And that's not something I'm capable of doing. At that point, I will usually disclose. And there's just no right answer.
Sure.
And it's awkward when that time does come really early on. But at the end, I think I've spent so many years being ashamed of having a disability and hiding it that if someone isn't going to accept me at like the 2-day mark of disclosing my disability, like they're probably not going to accept me 2 months in when I tell them. I think it's all about the mindset of the other person. And so it's just, yeah, I don't know. What's your opinion on disclosing?
I think it's hard because, in a way, like when I think about my disability, I'm like, all right, I have a disability and it goes everywhere with me, but that's not me. Like I am something, I am me, but not the disability, right? So you'd love for this other person to get to know that you before they know that you has a disability, right? And so ideally it would be like, okay, 2 months in, 6 months in, after you've gotten to know each other as people, then you introduce this X factor, right? But I also realize that like maybe that's not the whole me if I'm not disclosing my disability up front. And so, like you said, I don't think there's a right answer. It's really hard. So, yeah, I don't have an answer, I guess.
I think it could be important to like gauge who you're talking to and not just have the same answer for everyone, but if you can pick up on the type of person that someone is, that might be a better indication on when to disclose. But yeah, it's the trickiest part, I think, about dating with disability.
Something I've come to realize probably in the last couple of years is something you said, Jacqueline, was it's something about does the individual deserve to know that information? And I think of those details as a privilege in a sense. So I have no problem talking to strangers or even dating apps at very surface levels. I might mention I use a walker. I might mention I walk funny or, keep it simple. But to define my condition or to identify the name of it and talk about some of the more ongoing challenges, I gotta know you're sticking around. Maybe not to date, but if maybe a friend, like I don't know. I guess ultimately I'm just saying the same thing you guys are saying. I don't know.
Thanks, Sean.
I mean, it's hard. There's things that I'm not going to disclose in the first date, but because it's not a disability, like I have the privilege of keeping that to myself for as long as I want. So it's like a tricky balance that, I don't know. But now, and Google Jacqueline and they'll know. So she doesn't have those anymore.
That's true. Like, I feel the same way too. It's like somebody asks me details. I mean, listen to my podcast. Right. If you want to know,
Yeah.
Go check me. Yeah. It's, you make a good point, Alexa. Everybody's got something they are not going to reveal on the first date, right? Whether it's your GPA or your financial position or family stuff when you were a kid or whatever it may be. Everybody in all walks of life will come to grips with when do I disclose that detail or that fact at some point in a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question that I ask myself anytime I speak to someone. And even just like regular people who I'm not dating. Like when someone previously asked me, like, what do you do for work? Mm-hmm. I was just really managing my health for the longest time. And I felt really uncomfortable when someone would ask me that question. Sometimes make a joke out of it and say nothing. Or I would say, I'm just managing my health right now. And it's just all the different types of questions regarding it. Yeah, I think it's just disclosing anything when the person deserves it.
Yeah, that's a great statement.
And we can hopefully expect that back. Like, this person only discloses things to us when we deserve it, right?
Yeah.
Tell our listeners where to find Dateability and how to get plugged in.
You can follow us on Instagram at Dateability App and download the app on iOS and Android. And you can access the web app at dateabilityapp.com.
That's app APP. To all of your listeners who are thinking about signing up or who ultimately do sign up after listening to this episode, we are a very new app. Right now, our location function is turned off so that you can see everyone on the app. We think that creates a better user experience than just coming across, maybe one or two people in your geographical region. And this way you get to watch the app grow. Eventually, we will turn that location function on. So you can only see people within a certain radius, but we want to let everyone know that because I know there's been a bit of confusion. And that, if you do join the app and you have any feedback, we're very open to feedback. And so feel free to reach out to us, even if it's negative. We can take it.
Yeah.
And really, there's nothing to lose. You don't pay for it. You put your information on there like any other dating app, and you can be part of and add to that community. So I think it's really great.
Thank you.
I mean, there is nothing to lose. Eventually, we'll add a subscription model, but we really want Dateability to always have a free version. That's super important to us. And so, like you said, there's really nothing to lose, only to gain.
Ladies, I'm glad you came on today and shared a little bit about your personal experience and also, of course, your Dateability app and the exciting community that you guys are helping facilitate. Great job, and we're happy to be connected to you guys in this way.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. It's been such a pleasure.
It's always great to have, thought-provoking conversations.
I wish I had those more, but with Kyle at the other, no, I'm kidding. Well, thank you again for being a part of the show today. You guys were fun to chat with, and obviously you have a lot of exciting things going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean, what I really love about Jacqueline and Alexa's story is they took a really difficult situation that they experienced themselves and they turned it into an opportunity to help other people with the insight they gained from the difficulties in their lives. And I just think that's something that we should all do all the time, I guess, right?
That's what life is meant to be, right? To be in service to other people while still accomplishing your own ambitions and what's important to you and all that good stuff. So I agree with you on that one, and I'm thankful that these sisters are making waves in this world. Kyle, let's wrap this episode up with thank you notes. As listeners know, every episode, we take a moment to express gratitude. We believe just saying thank you helps get our mind and attitude a little more centered. So, Kyle, who are you saying thank you to today?
Last night, I went to the Uplifting Athletes Young Investigator Draft, and this is something I've talked about probably every year on the podcast when I go, because I've been every time. It's so much fun. They stage it just like the NFL draft, as close as they can, but they're honoring young investigators in rare disease that are doing incredible work. And a FARA investigator, Anna Stepanova, was a recipient last night, and I got to hang out with Anna and experience the whole night. Incredible night, just honoring rare disease research. When does that ever happen, right? And, everybody's all dressed up, and it's a really fun night. But my thank you note goes to Andra Stepanova for her work in FA research. She is specifically looking at different chemicals in the heart in people with the FA. As both of us know, heart disease is the thing that takes people with FA at much too young an age. And Anna's research will provide insights into how we might approach treating heart disease in FA.
I smile as you were setting up that thank you note, talking about uplifting athletes and how they set it up like the real NFL draft.
Right.
And they could set it up like a national spelling bee, and you can tell me this is the real NFL draft. And I wouldn't know the difference. I just want to make that known.
Yeah, well, and I guess the point is that they make a big deal of it.
Yeah,
whether it's a spelling bee or an NFL draft.
It's really well done. I've seen photos and little video clips and uplifting athletes. They got some good things going on. Kyle, my thank you note is going to an acquaintance of ours. Aaron Fisher is, I don't know exactly his title, but he's the coordinator or the office manager or something for Dr. Perlman's office out of UCLA. And Dr. Susan Perlman, a lead researcher in the FA community. Aaron moved into management in that department a couple of years ago, so I don't see him very often, or I haven't seen him in a couple of years. But I was at UCLA last week and had the privilege of running into Aaron, and just like old times, although he's got a million things to do, he sat down and we chatted for a little bit and we just connected and found out he's got a baby due in a week or two, so his first baby. So super excited for him, and just glad to know that he's in our corner in this line of work that he's doing. So Aaron, congratulations on the baby, and thank you for your dedication to FA research.
Yep, wonderful work Aaron does all the time. Thank you to our guests, Alexa and Jacqueline. Such amazing work they're doing. This episode is made possible in part due to the support of our sponsor, Horizon Therapeutics. Please visit our show notes on our website, twodisableddudes.com. You can find links to all the things we discussed today. If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe and share it with a friend. Until next time, keep living with urgency. Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. This show is possible with your support. Visit twodisableddudes.com to donate.
Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app.